The Marine Raiders have been abruptly disbanded by their own side twice. They're still here. Before the Green Berets, before the Navy SEALs, before Delta Force, there was an experiment. A small group of Marines trained for one purpose: hit the Japanese where they felt untouchable. They proved it worked, bled for it, built the blueprint for everything that came after. And then the Marine Corps erased them, disbanded the whole program, buried the name for 60 years. When they finally brought the Raiders back, the first unit deployed to Afghanistan got kicked out of the country by an army general who called them a disgrace. He was wrong. It would take years to prove it. I will cover the legacy of the Marine Raiders and talk about what I could find on Fox Company and how they were left hanging after a raw deal in Afghanistan during their deployment in March 2007. The United States had just suffered a catastrophic defeat after a surprise attack on our fleet docked in Pearl Harbor. Needless to say, it left our Pacific Fleet crippled. The losses could have been much worse. Our aircraft carriers were not in Pearl Harbor. We were caught flat-footed and took a proverbial Sunday punch to the eye and a swift kick in the ass in short order. Now the Pacific is on fire. Japan is sweeping through everything: the Philippines, Wake Island, Singapore. And America doesn't have a modern special operations capability. However, the British did. Their commandos were proving that small units could cause massive damage behind enemy lines. Churchill loved them. FDR was paying attention. They had been running fast, hard-hitting strikes behind enemy lines that deliver high-yield returns. Before long, the pressure comes down. We need something similar. And fast. Problem is, the Marine Corps isn't built for this. At all. They're an amphibious assault force, trained for large-scale beach landings, massed firepower. That's their identity. Small commando teams operating independently? That's a different animal entirely. But the order comes anyway. Make it happen. And the men who end up building it wasn't even supposed to be in charge. Actually, there were 2 Marines that fit the bill, which is a little odd because they hated each other's methods. The Raiders didn't have one founding philosophy, they had 2, and the tension between them defined the unit. First, Evans Carlson. Carlson was unconventional in every sense. He'd spent years in China observing Mao's guerrilla forces. Came back with ideas that made traditional Marines uncomfortable. His concept: small autonomous teams, minimal rank distinctions, officers and enlisted working as equals. He called it gung-ho, Chinese for work together. The brass thought he was a communist. His men would have charged the gates of hell with an empty bucket of water if Carlson was leading the charge. Second, Merit Red Mike Edson. Edson was the opposite. Traditional Marine to his core. Discipline, marksmanship, aggressive tactics executed with precision. His Raiders were elite because they were the most disciplined, most lethal conventional fighters the Corps could produce. Same mission, completely different approaches. Red Edson got the 1st Raider Battalion and Carlson got the 2nd Raider Battalion. Both units were volunteer only. You didn't get assigned to the Raiders, you asked for it. And then you survived a selection process designed to break anyone who didn't belong. The question wasn't whether the Raiders could fight. The question was which philosophy would prove right. August 1942. Carlson's boys got their answer first. August 17, 1942, Makin Island. 201 Raiders from Carlson's 2nd Battalion launched from submarines in rubber boats. Middle of the night. Target: a Japanese outpost in the Gilbert Islands. The insertion was chaos. Surf-swamped boats. Engines failed. Men scattered across the beach in the dark. The Raiders rolled with the punches and completed their mission. But they adapted. Small teams found each other and started moving. That's what Carlson had trained them for. Operate independently, trust your team, figure it out. The fighting was close. Jungle. Japanese defenders who didn't expect Americans to show up in the middle of the night. The Raiders cleared the island, destroyed the radio station, killed the garrison commander. On paper, success. The mission boxes all checked. Reality was a mess. Extraction went wrong, more boats swamped, some Raiders got left behind, 9 men were eventually captured by the Japanese and executed, and strategically, Debatable. The raid alerted Japan that the Americans were capable of hitting isolated outposts. Some historians argue it led to reinforcements that made later operations harder. Hard to say. It wasn't a pretty victory, but it was a victory nonetheless, and inside the Marine Corps, people were already asking, are the raiders worth the trouble? It's definitely had its fair share of saboteurs and detractors about the Marines forming elite raiders, essentially hard-hitting, fast-moving, lethal commando teams. A month later, Edson's raiders would answer that question on a ridge in Guadalcanal. September 1942. Guadalcanal. The Marines are clinging to Henderson Field, the airstrip that controls the Solomons. Whoever holds that field controls the air war in the Pacific. The Japanese know this. They're throwing everything at it. Edson's first raiders and the para-Marines get positioned on a ridge south of the airfield, high ground. If the Japanese take that ridge, they roll straight into Henderson. Night of September 12th. The Japanese attack. Look, this wasn't a raid. This was survival. Wave after wave kept charging Edson's raiders. It was touch and go, but the raiders held. The Japanese just kept coming. Wave after wave of Japanese infantry came up that ridge. Banzai charges, bayonets, hand-to-hand fighting in the dark. Edson was everywhere, repositioning units, plugging holes in the line, personally directing fire. At one point, the line nearly broke. Edson rallied what was left and held. By morning, the ridge was covered with Japanese dead. The raiders had held. Henderson Field stayed in American hands. The raiders proved they weren't just commandos. They could hold ground against a superior force when everything depended on it. The weeks at the range training paid dividends, plus the discipline to dig in when retreat wasn't an option. The raiders returned the proverbial swift kick in the ass on Bloody Ridge. This was their proof of concept. The raiders worked. And right when they proved their value, the Marine Corps shut them down. The war is turning. The Marine Corps is expanding massively. Hundreds of thousands of men flowing into conventional divisions. The brass looks at the raiders and makes a calculation. The raiders are effective, but they're also a headache. Carlson's methods are controversial. His gung-ho philosophy rubs traditional officers the wrong way. There's friction at every level. More importantly, the Corps is shifting to large-scale amphibious assaults. Tarawa, Saipan, Iwo Jima. Island hopping with massed firepower. Small commando units don't fit that model. The decision comes down. The raider battalions get absorbed into regular infantry divisions. The name disappears. The experiment is over. Just like that. The most effective special operations unit in the Pacific, disbanded. The men got scattered. The lessons got filed away. For 60 years, if you were a Marine who wanted to do special operations, you had one option. Leave the Corps and join Army SF or the SEAL teams. The Marine Corps disbanded their own elite unit because of internal politics. First time, then 9/11 happened. And suddenly the Corps needed raiders again. The Marine Corps finally joined SOCOM. Marine Forces Special Operations Command, MARSOC, stands up. It took 60 years. Wars in Afghanistan and Iraq made it clear. The Marines needed their own special operations capability, or keep losing their best operators to Army SF and the SEAL teams. The new unit was built from scratch. Direct action, special reconnaissance, foreign internal defense, all the missions the original raiders would have recognized. First deployment, Afghanistan, 2007. Fox Company. What happened next almost destroyed the program before it really started. March 4th, 2007. Nangarhar Province, Afghanistan. Fox Company's convoy is rolling through when a VBIED, vehicle-borne improvised explosive device, bomb detonates. The blast wounds Marines and kills Afghan civilians in the immediate area. What happens next is textbook. The Marines suppress the ambush, return fire on enemy positions, fight their way out. Standard response to a complex ambush. Then the politics start. Afghan officials claim the Marines fired indiscriminately, shot civilians, killed innocents in the chaos. An Army Major General reviews the initial reports. Without a full investigation, without hearing the Marine side, he kicks the entire company out of Afghanistan and actually calls them a disgrace to the uniform. The media picks it up. Marine rogues, war criminals, headlines everywhere. Fox Company gets sent home. Their careers are frozen. Their names are being dragged through the mud. These are Marines who did exactly what they were trained to do in a complex ambush, and they're being treated like murderers. For years, they lived under that cloud. Pay attention to what happened next. The investigation took years. When it finally concluded, here's what it found. Fox Company acted appropriately, and that was it. The civilian casualties was Taliban propaganda. The ambush was designed to create exactly the narrative that played out. Attack the Americans, blame them for the carnage, let the media do the rest. No courts-martial, no convictions. Because there was nothing to convict. The raiders had been hammered for nothing. It took 7 to 8 years, but the program survived. And eventually, so did their honor. The Marine Corps makes it official. MARSOC operators will carry the name Marine Raiders. Same name as the World War II legends. Carlson's men, Edson's men, the guys who held Bloody Ridge and raided Makin. That wasn't just honoring history, it was a signal. The Raiders are back, and buried in that announcement was something else. Fox Company's honor restored. The men who'd been called a disgrace were now part of a unit carrying the most storied name in Marine Special Operations history. The ideas Carlson and Edson fought over in 1942, small unit excellence, unconventional flexibility, the best of discipline and adaptability, those ideas survived. Took 70 years, 2 disbandments, and a political scandal. But they came back. Today, Marine Raiders deploy alongside Delta, DevGRU, and the other JSOC elements. They combine Edson's discipline with Carlson's adaptability. The rivalry that started the program in 1942 got resolved into something stronger. The Raiders weren't erased because they failed. They were erased because the institution wasn't ready for what they represented. In 1944, it was elite units threatening Marine Corps culture. In 2007, it was political convenience sacrificing Marines to keep Afghan officials happy. Both times the Raiders came back, twice disbanded, twice reborn. From submarine raids in the Pacific to the mountains of Afghanistan, from Bloody Ridge to the Fox Company scandal, the Raiders have held their ground, handed their enemies sound defeats, and completed their missions with honor. Train hard, you will fight like you train. The Raiders wrote that lesson before most special operations units existed. Always faithful, always forward. Thanks for watching. I appreciate it.